Greetings, this is Adrian Scott en route to the airport. So we're just taking our Uber out to the airport right now. It's going to take a little while to get there. I'll have some more updates coming, but here's a little bit of scenery on the way to the airport. All right, so there is round two. This is on the way to the airport and taken to the skies. Hope you enjoyed that. A little bit of backstory for a bit of that, anyways. So yeah, we did take an Uber to get from Abbotsford to get to the airport in Vancouver. Actually, it's Richmond, but they call it Vancouver Airport. That one, we got there quite early, so we had been advised to show up for security, yada yada, this and that, etc., to show up well ahead of time. So we did. And we actually ended up getting through security and check all relatively quick. So we had, I think we probably sat there for it might have even been 3 hours waiting for flight time. It might have even been a little bit longer than that, but we'll say between 3 and 4 hours that we were there ahead of time. And so we got there, and that's where you see a lot of pictures and videos. And one of the really cool parts of that is that whole atrium thing, which you can see towards the end of that as we're at the airport, and I back up from the video and you can see it's closed. But normally you can walk in there. But that's like fully a little outdoor thing in the airport. Those are real trees, and then they've got these little smoke machines blowing fog across, and there's like some trickling water they got there bubbling out the side, a little fountain effect or whatever, make it look like a little river. It is really cool. And one thing I didn't capture was along the outside of that, it's encircled. Well, you can see a little bit of it. It's encircled in this wall, but effectively all the panels of this wall, at least on the back end portion that I wasn't standing at, is like TV screens, a bunch of TV screens. So you had this image of fish and stuff swimming underwater that was just taking up the whole screen. And it looks like it's this enormous aquarium. It almost gives it this effect. So yeah, that's Vancouver International Airport, which is ranked one of the better airports around. And you can see, I mean, it's very clean. It's actually quite organized, easy to navigate. So we were there ahead of time, quite a bit ahead of time, and took that extra footage. So that's why I get a lot of pictures there. You know, there's not a lot to see when you're actually on the airplane. One airplane's pretty much the same kind of thing as the next. And so, you know, not a whole lot there. Although one of the aspects which I did feature in the video here that I thought was really cool, keeping in mind, I'm not a well-traveled person, so I have not done a lot of airlines and stuff like that. But just the fact that you had this in-flight, real-time GPS, where if you wanted to sit there, you could watch the airplane agonizingly slowly moving over the map as it's actually, and it would flash to that screen once in a while, but you could actually watch your progress. And I don't know why it was so fascinating to me, but I'm looking at the projected path. You can see in the one image there where it's showing Vancouver to Frankfurt. And the line of the projected path of the airplane is going to take us. I don't know why I found this so fascinating, but that it was going to take us directly over Reykjavik, Iceland. The only thing I can figure is, aside from all of this stuff, and here's a little behind the scenes of me, one of the things that I've always been quite interested in is strongman competitions, and I have watched the World's Strongest Man from its inception, I think it was in 1977, through to the current year, and it's definitely changed a lot. But there was a period in the 80s, being the 80s guy, I mean, me and Ray, we're both, that's where we grew up. That's our era, is the 80s. There was a strongman that came on the scene by the name of Jan Paul Sigmarsson from Iceland. And just a very super charismatic showman. He really brought a public face to the sport and is very fondly remembered by many within that crowd, both fans and fellow competitors. And is the first person to ever win 4 World Strongman titles. Anyways, towards the end of his career, there were some injuries and unfortunately an early death. But towards the end of his career, he ended up being replaced by another Icelander by the name of Magnus Vermagnusson. And so you really had this Icelandic dynasty through the middle to late 80s and then the early to mid 90s. And now, of course, in modern era, we have Hafthor Bjornsson, also known as Thor, who, for anyone who has watched Game of Thrones, I guess plays this character Giant. I've never seen Game of Thrones, but apparently he does feature in that show. But he's the next, big name out of Iceland. So it's got quite a history of strongman, and maybe that's it. That's what was so interesting to me, that I'm that close to where these people were from. But anyways, I just found that really fascinating. One thing I did want to mention is once we landed in Germany, you see that there's two pictures, and a big reason for that is, it's not a huge airport, but it was big enough, and we seemed to end up at a point where we landed at one side and had to get completely to the other end for our next flight. So there wasn't a lot of lag time. We really had to move pretty quick, and we were also struggling a little bit to find where we were supposed to go. So I didn't have a lot of time to take random pictures and videos there. And when we finally got over there, it was a huge lineup for the security clearance. A lot of Jewish people that were also heading to Israel for Sukkot, which was upon us. It was just a couple of days away. And so I think that was a lot of the crowds going in and subsequently coming out of Israel were these people that had traveled from the United States, but really various parts of Europe and all around the world, going to because it is one of the pilgrimage feasts, and they were making their trek to Israel to be in Jerusalem for Sukkot. But it was a huge lineup, and we finally got through there, and the area that we were in had a lot of people in a very small area. I really don't like to film people without explicitly getting their permission, and it just was a lot of people there to try to talk to, so I just kind of snuck the pictures in I could. I wanted to get something that indicated we were at Frankfurt Airport, so that's the one picture you see with the sign, just to get that. And then the other one is in our waiting area as we're waiting for our next flight. Once we cleared security and got in there, we weren't sitting there very long anyways before we were boarding that flight. So that's why, there's not necessarily a whole ton of stuff in this section after Vancouver International. That's just the one where I had the most time and the easiest access to cameras and stuff. So when we pick up in the next video, it is basically arrival in Israel. And we land at Ben Gurion Airport in Tel Aviv. And, well, you'll see that when we get there. But, so that's going to be the next one. And I've started preliminary editing on that. We are still dealing with a lot of other stuff, so it's kind of slow going. I am plugging away at it. And in the meantime, again, I hope you enjoyed this video. I do ask, if you can, subscribe, give it a thumbs up. Feel free to share. If you want to comment, you can do so down below. And you can email us as well, and you'll hear about that at the tail end of the video here. So thanks for tuning in. Always happy to see you here. Look forward to seeing you in the next one. In the meantime, I just wish you all blessings in the name of Yeshua HaMashiach, Jesus Christ, our Messiah. And I wish you a good week. And we'll see you next time. Bye for now.
You've been listening to Truth and Testimony, the broadcast. If you have a comment, please leave it on the bottom of this video or email us at truthandtestimonyemail@gmail.com. Again, thank you for joining us, and we'll see you next time. Truth and Testimony, the broadcast, is not affiliated with Truth and Testimony magazine.